Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Marc Elrich celebrates 100 days in office by accusing county government of systemic racism. What's the answer? 60% of Maryland high school graduates can't read at the 10th grade level. Will he or won't he? What is Larry Hogan up to? And can anything be done to save Baltimore from further decay and tragedy? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the former mayor of the city of Rockville, Susan Hoffmann, Maryland Young Republican National Committeeman, Evan Young, Maryland political consultant, Sean Winkler, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. To celebrate his first 100 days in office, County Executive Marc Elrich promoted his accomplishments, the unveiling of an early education initiative, launching a crackdown on rental housing code violators, took credit for launching a Department of Permitting Services website, and took the occasion to declare that Montgomery County government at all levels has helped to create and maintain systemic racial inequality. Sean, is the Montgomery County government systematically discriminated against African Americans and other minorities?
Well, Casey, I think we really have a panel tonight that is qualified to talk about these issues, but I don't think it takes a master in city planning to see the differences driving up a Wisconsin Avenue in Rockville Pike versus driving up Georgia Avenue. And it doesn't take a statistician to see the differences in unemployment rates. But I think what this administration is missing is the economic opportunity side. We should be talking about growing this county, not growing Frederick County, and that will continue to be a challenge for this administration.
Well, I'm glad you didn't answer the questions, Sean. Susan Heltemes, in the joint press release, Mr. Elrich and Mrs. Navarro stated the following: while the county is known for embracing its diversity, disparities in education, employment opportunities, health care, and housing persist across races and ethnicities, income levels, gender, and English language proficiency. What are they driving at? What are they trying to solve?
Well, he released his budget today, and one of the things he's been pushing for is early education. And there is inherent discrepancies in Montgomery County. Those things include such things like, did your parents go to college? Do they speak English? Do they have 3 or 4 jobs a year? Did you live in housing where there was mold and lead paint? In other words, what we need to do is to lift those kids up at the very beginning so that they have an opportunity once they hit school, so they don't drag down the kids who know what they're doing.
Susan,
yet they're given
that's really wonderful that they want to do it, but there are certain circumstances that government can't fix.
No, and
government can't fix the fact that your first language may be Spanish.
And he's not saying that. What I said,
What I want to know is, why does he feel that the Montgomery County government, which has been led for the past 12 years by an African American, is systematically discriminating against its residents? That's what I want to know. That's an outrageous statement that our government is doing that. Not that the discrimination doesn't exist. We understand discrimination can exist, but Montgomery County government how is it discriminating against its residents?
It has to do with resources, and the squeaky wheel usually gets the grease. And he made the perfect comment. You compare Wisconsin Avenue to Georgia Avenue. There is a difference in public facilities. That's just one example. There is a difference in crime. There are all sorts of differences.
If I could jump in.
Yeah. I want your experience, because as mayor of Rockville, you've been involved with running a government. So how does government discriminate?
So what I think you said was that Montgomery County government systematically
I didn't say
discriminate.
This was a statement from the county executive.
I think he said systemically, and that's different.
Yes,
because
that was the word he used.
What we're seeing, and it's not specific to Montgomery County government, but it's certainly culturally in this country, and Mr. Elrich's responsibility is the county, so that's what he's talking about. There are systemic, innate, inborn, so to speak, discriminations that occur.
Susan, we've had an African-American county executive for the past 12 years. Mr. Elrich and a whole bunch of other liberal county council members were on the county council for the past 12 years. How did they allow this to occur, if that's what you're saying, over the last 12 years? I think this is just utter nonsense.
Well, they're working against it. They're trying to make it better and better and better.
And
they can't turn 100 years, 200 years of systemic racism.
And what he is saying, though, is
terms.
I want to respond to something that he said, though. He said we need to get jobs. One of the things that the county executive said today in his briefing about the budget was we need to work harder on workforce development and change strategies, which is totally needed. I absolutely agree. And we do need more pre-K. That should be a nationwide goal, not just in Maryland.
Well, we're going to have to go on to our next topic because we've run out of time on this. I did want to ask about the police department's app and what the significance of being able to have access to crime statistics are. But we'll have to save that for another day.
We'll all come back, Casey.
I hope so. I'll invite you back, Susan. I'll invite both of you Susans back.
I know.
To
It's
gang
such
up
fun.
on me. But many pundits and the other chattering classes are urging Maryland Governor Larry Hogan to mount a primary challenge against President Donald Trump in 2020. Sean, Governor Hogan's office has announced that he will be speaking at the Politics and Eggs series at St. Anselm's. Is that a good idea?
Well, is there such a thing as a free breakfast as well? Because I'm not sure he'll be getting that in New Hampshire. But if I'm Hogan and if I'm seriously considering a challenge to Donald Trump, I have to win New Hampshire. I mean, that is kind of the bedrock of what you would describe as a traditional Republican. If he can't carry that state, he is wasting everyone's time and perhaps is showing he's a little concerned about his next step on what the next chapter of his life will be as he wraps up his second term.
I want to go to the other Republican on the panel, Evan.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a national committee representative for the party.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about our governor running in a primary against the President of the United States?
I can tell you personally, if he primaries President Trump, I'm very glad Governor Hogan's our governor, but I'll be supporting President Trump in any primary. The lowest approval rating among Republicans I've seen for the president is still in the mid-80s. So I don't think he's seriously going to primary the president. I think this is, if something came out, if the president was impeached, if Donald Trump was not running again, then the governor's positioning himself to come in. But when no collusion comes out, when Democrats try the next way to obstruct the president and take him down, that still doesn't work. And in 2020, Donald Trump's running for re-election again. I don't think Larry Hogan's going to be jumping in that
You
race.
think he'll do as well as the last governor of Maryland running on a primary?
Yeah, worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Susan Heltemes, there's an old saying that you don't believe in your press clippings. I think John McCain said that in 2000 after his defeat by former President Obama. What is going to be gained by Larry Hogan taking on and running against the incumbent?
There's nothing wrong with going out there and testing the waters, and he's being encouraged. I heard a fascinating conversation early this morning about how President Trump has the lowest approval rating of any incumbent presidency at this point, and he's got some weak spots. We all know that. He has a potty mouth. He has a tweeting problem. The economy isn't going as well as what he might say. Almost every person around him is being indicted. The first ones are going off to jail. I'd say that it's really smart on Governor Hogan's part to get out there.
Why?
Because I think that it'll give great glee to the Democrats, for one thing. But beyond that, I think there is a small percentage of 30% who will go off the cliffs like lemmings to support this president. But the majority of Republicans, the silent majority, they do not support.
they're gonna go out
85%
they're gonna go
support him at
Howard
the
Schultz?
lowest.
Is that who you think they're going to support?
No, there probably could say Larry Hogan is an attractive person. He is a moderate Republican, and I think that the Democrats in this last election, choosing the person that we did in the primary, we don't do so well when we go way to the
I want to go to
left.
Susan Hoffmann on this. So Susan, since you've heard all of the positive reasons that your fellow Susan has said, why don't you just let the Republicans commit suicide and have nobody oppose Trump?
I don't really have a particular position on what Larry Hogan should do. I'm not going to give him political advice.
And he won't
nor
take
would
it,
he want
nor
it.
will he take it either.
Right.
When we come back from this short break, teachers rally for higher pay, but 60% of high school graduates can't read at a 10th grade level. And how will banning styrofoam solve Maryland's litter problems? Stay tuned. Welcome back. When the teachers union comes to Annapolis each year to lobby for more education funds, it's kind of like the circus coming to town. I'm not sure the bigger clowns, the politicians, or the union members, but everybody seems to love a parade. What they don't like is being held accountable. Susan Hoffmann, 8,500 strong, came to Annapolis urging the legislature to increase public spending. But isn't it time to have a skeptical eye about what your money is buying when the education results are so abysmal?
Absolutely. Skeptical eyes and how money is being spent is very smart. There's no question that the amount of money spent on the classroom or spent on teacher salaries brings a good result for the students. When that money gets sent to administration in this morass, then it reminds me of the circumlocution office in the Dickens novel Little Dorrit, where no one could figure out how it worked and no one could figure out how to fix it. I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going on in Montgomery County or in Maryland, but large administration is not how we're going to get our students to the best level. The money needs to go to the best teachers, attracting the best teachers with good salaries, and reducing class size.
Thank you. Evan, the Maryland Public Policy Institute found that increased spending doesn't result in better education, but just creates more administrative bloat. How can we demand better results? We seem to have so little control over the education budget.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're mentioning the administrative costs because Maryland leads the nation in per student administrative costs. 6 of the 10 highest administrative cost per student jurisdictions are in Maryland, and Baltimore City is number 1 in the country. Eventually people have to start asking, when you're spending more every year on something, the results are getting worse, that's not a good return on your investment, and we need to start holding those people accountable. I see people protesting and marching and demanding this, demanding that. I don't see them going to the administrative buildings and demanding they be wiped out and they be fired, especially when we have teachers, classroom teachers, having to buy, classroom books and school supplies for their own classroom. But we have, year after year, we spend more money, and it appears to just be going to the administration more than any other part of the school system. We need to actually start holding those people accountable.
I was really thrilled this week when I heard the county executive say that he has stated to the school board and to the superintendent that they need an IG, an inspector general. And he said, don't hate the IG. They're not going to come in and tell you what your curriculum is, but let them come in and look at what's going on. And he said, embrace the IG. He said it will be good for everyone. So I hope that comes about, that there is an inspector general for the school system, because I think a lot of the things.
But an inspector general primarily looks at financial spending.
And
whether or not there's fraud and abuse in the letting of contracts. It
goes way beyond that in the county, because I was a part of a report.
Well, we don't know what the mandate is that would be written for this inspector general. It's just a proposal.
But I think it's a great idea to get started.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of parents would be really mad to find out just how much is going to those administrative costs. I don't think the average parent dropping their kid off at school really knows how this money is being broken down.
It's hard to figure it out. It's hard to read it, and that's one of the things that would be
more transparency.
Very valuable. Transparency, indeed, and also if the IG got on
that. How do you improve performance?
I think there'll be a correlation.
Teacher performance. Obviously, if students aren't learning algebra and English properly, there's a performance level that isn't being
I know,
Exactly.
but
But the
Casey, what
question-
happens
okay,
if you
wait a
don't
minute, let
come
me
into
just-
the first grade and aren't prepared? You're going to keep going downhill.
You have to be ready to learn.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. But you are going to get the best teachers by paying them well. I think money is very important. We look at private schools and we see what happens. But a lot of that money is not going to the teacher salaries, it's going to administration. And that's my point.
All right, we're going to have to go on to our next topic. In a lengthy article by Alex McGillis, co-published in New York Times Magazine and ProPublica, McGillis writes about the new tragedy of Baltimore. It is a sad story to read. It must be even worse living there. There's nothing charming about Charm City right now if you're living in West Baltimore. Susan Heltemes, since Freddie Gray's death in 2015, violent crime spiked to levels unseen for a quarter of a century. In 2017, there was a record 342 murders, its highest per capita rate ever. Cops are afraid to make arrests because of the fear of prosecution. So how do you restore a civic compact that has become so frayed?
I think that what the article you alluded to is that you need both justice and you need order. And with that, you need a competent police chief, you need a competent mayor, and you need a competent city attorney who are working well. And it might be believed that people don't, in certain parts of Baltimore, may not want the cops there. They do. They want their neighborhood to be safe as anything. But you had on a clip earlier of the decay in Baltimore. When New York turned around its city, they got rid of decrepit buildings like that. They started there. They had after-school programs. They need preschool education also. It is a compilation of efforts. And I believe that from what I read in the article, the consent decree with the Justice Department, if the city followed it, would probably work because you do need that balance. And
Susan, what I read in that same article was that there were so many conflicts in the consent decree that the police felt that they couldn't do their jobs.
Well, no,
Sean, what's the larger challenge? The political challenge presented by a series of leaders that are unable to lead, or an assumption that that policing is inherently corrupt?
It has to be the political challenge because politicians control the police department. They're making those high-level appointments. And the fact of the matter is the establishment in Baltimore has failed the average citizen. And as we're looking ahead to the 2020 mayoral elections, no challenger has emerged against Catherine Pugh. No challenger has emerged against Jack Young. We're going to see the same faces promoting the same system that is failing Baltimore residents and not investing properly in communities around the city.
No, Chief Harrison just came from New Orleans where they had a lot of the similar problems. And he just today announced that he's bringing 2 of his former assistants from New Orleans to Baltimore. And I think that we need to say a prayer for him every night that he gets the city going in the right.
But how do you create an environment where the police aren't afraid to do their jobs? Susan.
You have to look at community policing. We brought community policing to Rockville. I'm not comparing Rockville to Baltimore by any means, but the concept of the police being on the side of the citizens and that the police officer is our friend needs to be a basic concept that is accepted by the resident.
But it's not just the officer is your friend. Yeah. Evan, in the article, they talk about the fact that if the criminals aren't somewhat afraid of the police and have respect of the police, they're going to act without regard of being caught and having any consequences.
When I was reading in 2017, nearly 50% of felony cases in Baltimore weren't even prosecuted. So you might get arrested for a felony, and then before you know it, you're back out on the street. Nothing happened to you.
But part of it had to do with police corruption, and the city has come down on that this last year. And I think you're going to see a turn there. Cops were going to jail. And they were messing with DNA. They were making money on the side anyway. I mean, it was so corrupt. And that's why I think
But if the average policeman feels that he's going to be second-guessed at every turn, they're not going to put their life on the line to stop crime.
Well, as Susan mentioned too, the city attorney, the average policeman brings a case just for it to die. So there is no trust right now between the state's attorney and
That's
the
why I
police
said
department.
you need to get the
And that goes back to political leadership. So all of this starts at political leadership. We have entrenched incumbents that are going nowhere, and we need a new generation of leaders.
and we have
And-
had a series of bad police chiefs up
I
there.
was going to say, we need to remember the vast majority of people in Baltimore are not out committing crimes doing
they're
this.
not.
But then at the same time, they're not motivated enough to actually make any of the change that Sean's talking about. 300 some murders in Baltimore last year. How many people live in Baltimore?
600,000.
600,000. Why aren't that 500,000 and remaining some making some change, marching to the mayor's office, demanding these things be done? They hate what's happening in their community, but not enough to actually do something about it.
I think the community rising up in support and demanding better safety from their public officials is the key. Baltimore is important to us. As Marylanders, Baltimore is very important. It's our largest city. We spend a lot of money, and a healthy Baltimore is important for our economy and for our politics. Stay tuned for Parting Shots. And welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Susan Hoffmann.
So, State Senator William Colonel Smith, who represents District 20, the Silver Spring area, is in our General Assembly. And at the end of the assembly, after it ends, sine die, he's going to be off to Afghanistan to serve. And I wish him Godspeed, and we all wish him a safe return.
Thank you, Susan. Evan Young, your parting shot.
So in case you haven't heard, Crazy Bernie's running for president again. He is 4 years older than last time and just as useless. In 28 years in Congress, he has still only been the sponsor of 3 bills that have become law, 2 renamed post offices. So 2 things I take from this. 1, President Trump, just make Bernie Sanders Postmaster General. And 2, I gotta respect the guy for making it this far in life while being just so useless. Good luck, Bernie.
Thank you, Evan. Sean Winkler, your parting shot.
Well, March is in the air. We've officially made it. The weather is warming up. Conference basketball tournaments are going on, but they wouldn't know that in College Park, as we have once again been eliminated. The Mark Turgeon reign of terror seems to be continuing for an athletic department that is in disarray. I'm hopeful more changes are coming.
Thank you. Sean, Susan Heltemes, you get to wrap it up.
Okay, I want to commend students from Clarksburg to Bethesda to Silver Spring for going down to the White House and standing up for their means, sitting in front of the White House for 17 minutes of silence to honor the students in Parkland. And I also, we lost a great Marylander this week when former Governor Harry Hughes died. He was our 57th governor. After Mandel and Agnew, he brought dignity back to government, and he put the effort into the environment and the Bay, which is something to be grateful for. So my deepest sympathy to the Hughes family, and Denton, Maryland lost a great citizen, as we all did this last week.
Thank you, Susan. Now, in 2 days, when this program is being aired, it will be St. Patrick's Day. And I love telling this story because it shows the promise of America and really how wonderful America is as a melting pot. So in 1864, my great-grandfather, Thomas McNerney, came to America with his 6 brothers and sisters and his parents. And they went through Buffalo. They followed the railway working lines only to arrive in Kansas, where, luckily for me, my grandmother was born, she got married, and the rest is history. But the important part of this story is, a couple years ago, I went to the little village of Glen. Glen is a village. It is a crossroad on the way to Limerick, and in County Limerick, it's on the banks of the Shannon River. It's about 50 yards long. There's not a whole lot there. So when I came back, a lot of my friends said, well, did you go to the old homestead? I said, homestead? Are you kidding me? They were serfs on Lord Fitzgerald's land. They didn't own anything until they came to America. I'm so glad they came to America, the land of opportunity, the land of promise. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every weekend to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.